Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever we find you today. Looking forward to a great conversation regarding performance management upgraded, how you can make it faster, simpler, and fair with AI. And looking forward to a great conversation with our partners at Workleap. So I think I'll be first joined by Irina here on the stage. Irina, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Looking forward for the summer. Doing great. How are you doing, Matt?
Doing well. And we're going to have not only yourself, the senior HR advisor at Workleap, but we're going to be joined by your colleagues, Eva, head of growth at Workleap, and Jaylene, manager of customer success, and what's going to be a wide ranging conversation around all things performance management. Should be great.
Awesome. Yes, it will. I hope it'll be useful. So, if ever you have questions, even during the chat, we really invite you to add those in the chat below, and we'll cover some questions as we go through this session.
Yeah, let's absolutely do that. Let's have this be interactive. People have bring in your questions. Let's make this practical and applicable. But Irina, before we get started, I have some questions for you, if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
Let's get into it. I'd love to know a bit more about our performance management because let's be honest, AI is absolutely everywhere right now. But when it comes to HR, why do you think performance management in particular is one of the first places that organizations should be thinking about applying it?
Yes, you said that well. I think we should know that AI is going to reshape every single part of what we do in HR and every single one of our processes. But why we want to focus today on performance management is because it is a super strategic process for all of HR. It's a great way of knowing who is performing, who isn't. Sometimes we're taking salary decisions based on that. And given how important it is, we're still in that context where we still find that performance management is full of debt, meaning that we find that it's too demanding, that it's not as impactful or as valuable as it should be, and that it's not driving performance. So, if I'm just thinking about what are the main things that AI is great at, it has a really good use case in performance management. So, first of all, AI is amazing at summarizing and consolidating really, really large sets of data. And by sets of data, I mean as much qualitative data than quantitative data. If you've just tried and used it for example, analysis of some focus group notes, you'll see just how useful it is. You can like take all of your Word documents, all of your notes, whether you've had 10 focus groups or 50 focus groups, and you just push that into generative AI and say to generative AI, what are your objectives? What are you trying to get from that data set? You will get some amazing results. It'll save you a time just to look at all the data and really give you the insights that you're looking for on that specific project. Second of all, AI is a great coach. We don't think about that too much, but I don't know if you've seen it, but AI always tells you how great you are. So if you give it something and then you're like, hey, can you please tell me what's good in this report or what's not good in this report, what I could improve on. This is the audience I'm sending it to. AI is going to be able to acknowledge that you've done a great work, which is also always reinforcing and motivating. But the second thing is that it's really good at telling you where and what to improve on. It can give you very granular things, which will be related to the text format, but also very more strategic elements. Hey, you haven't covered this thing. Is this relevant in your context? Or hey, you haven't covered this other element. Is this relevant to your context? So it's really helping you buff up any of the content that you're doing. And lastly, I talked about performance management being something that we have all been struggling in HR for a long time. And AI is just the new disruptor, right? How can we make this experience just a little better? And how can we leverage AI to make the experience better, not only by speeding it up, but like making us be mind blown. I don't know how many times you've been mind blown but when using AI, Matt, but like, why can't we just have that like kind of experience when we're doing performance management? It's like that kind of wow effect is there throughout the steps.
I think most of us would settle for a moderately decent performance management experience. A wow might be stretching it based on where we've come from. I think you said it really well. We came from a place where performance management was a process that nobody really enjoyed. The HR people administering it didn't enjoy the process, the managers delivering it didn't enjoy the process, and the employees receiving it didn't enjoy the process. You heard stories about things like recency bias and people copying notes year over year. And it's one of those things that unfortunately ends up on the side of someone's desk. and doesn't really get the time and care that it needs. But to your point, when you blend things like artificial intelligence into the conversation, you can now bring all the transcripts from your previous one-on-one conversations to bear and not suffer from recency bias. You can bring in performance data and business KPIs and make it a real holistic conversation. You can pair it with someone's succession plan and their ultimate performance goals and really make it a holistic employee-centric conversation. So I think you're spot on in terms of how AI brings things forward. But I'm curious about your thoughts around fairness and equity, because we've talked a
Mhm.
lot about the more of the practical applications, but a real concern these days around performance management in general, but performance management powered by AI, is
Mhm.
fairness and equity. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, Irina, about that.
Yes. I think this is a challenge nonetheless, even right now, right? So this is an ongoing challenge that we have as HR is how do we make this fair and how do we make this coherent within the organization? How do we make our performance standard understood by every single person in the organization, as much by employees than by leaders, and setting those standards in a common way? And humans, we are full of biases. So I know that AI can hallucinate, but what is really important is for us to understand what are currently our biases as humans, and where can AI mitigate, enhance, or be better at managing these biases. Um, I will give you an example. Well, you actually mentioned a few. So you mentioned recency bias and what you just said. If we have an annual performance review, recency bias is a huge bias that is very present. So managers focus on what happened in the last 3 months, but we're supposed to be assessing the whole year. So the first thing that AI can do when we talk about assessing large amounts of data is that we are a little bit cutting on that recency bias, because AI is actually going to be help you look at those one-on-ones and the work that the person has done for the whole year and not just the last 3 months. And it can help you give you feedback if it notices that, hey, you haven't really given the full picture of this employee because you haven't focused on XYZ that has happened maybe 8 months ago or 9 months ago. Um, Another one is around objectivity and subjectivity, right? So how can we make it less opinion based when we're doing performance reviews? So if we tell AI to consolidate those one-on-one notes that are made by the managers, so those one-on-one notes by the managers are usually already biased with the manager's perception. So if they have proximity bias, that'll be already in there. If they have um, um, I'll just stick to proximity bias for now, but those biases that the manager has when they are giving those one-on-one notes, if that's the only data set or data point that we're giving to AI to summarize, the output of the AI is also going to be biased because it's only going to take into account those biased content. On the other hand, let's say that AI was connected to an employee's Outlook calendar. So it could say, okay, well, this employee has had X number of customer calls. And something that we already know is that we can now assess if the sentiment of the call is positive, negative, or neutral. And so you could say, hey, has this employee, when they've had calls with customer, has this generated kind of an overall positive effect or a negative effect? How is this employee managing that? And so it's attached to much more subjective data. And this attached to the manager data can give you a really much more broader view and really decrease kind of that opinion-based opinion bias that we have from managers. And AI can help mitigate some of that.
When bringing AI into performance management, I think one thing that many of our viewers, either watching live or watching the recorded copy of this, are going to be asking themselves is how can HR leaders stay focused on improving processes for people rather than just making them more efficient?
Mhm. It's a great thing. It's a good thing because we are in HR, so we're in human resources, and what we want to focus on the most is really what's the experience at the end, right? So yes, we want to be better at it and improve efficiency, but I think always in the back of our head is also like, how can we make this better employee experience overall? So how can I really use that intrinsic motivation from employees? How can I really drive that through my approach? Um, so there's a few things that still need to happen for it to keep maintain that balance of tech and human, because we still want this to be a human approach and human process. Um, First of all, I think we need to teach leaders and even employees the ethics of AI. So they need to understand what are the upsides and what are the downsides of AI. And by understanding that, we're going to make them be much more responsible users of AI in this context. And then that second element is about really being clear about whose responsibility is what. So what are the elements that remain the responsibility of the humans or the manager, the employee, and what could be enhanced with AI. So knowing that, for example, if we looked at the ethics, we know that AI can hallucinate. So if you ask them a question, and even if they don't have the data, usually AI is still going to answer you. We need to make sure that we double down until the human using it, you might still need to assess and confirm if it's true or not. So ask your AI, where did it get the data from? And then you take the little time to assess if that is accurate or not. So there is still a little bit of time that is required to assess the accuracy of the content that is being put, and especially for performance reviews, we know how important that is. And so being clear as HR that whomever is owner of the output is the human and not the AI. AI is really a tool, an enhancer at this point in time, and that's what we need to double down on. And the last thing that I think that we don't know enough is that AI is, I said, a great coach, but it can be a great coach for managers. So if we're thinking that we have leaders that are not so great at giving feedback, having development conversations, and knowing how to formulate something to make it more impactful and more motivating, AI is really, really, really good at that. And I know that as HR, we try to be everywhere in the business and we try to coach all of our leaders and tell them how to do it. But if we can give a little bit of that responsibility to AI, it's going to help us as HR, but it's also going to help our leaders a lot more. And giving them the tool that they can control that own coaching for themselves, I think is very empowering as well. Not feeling like they need to depend on someone else to get that coaching is quite useful.
I think you're right. I think that's a really liberating thing for HR, but it's also quite scary because it can feel like something's being taken away. And even though most HR leaders that I talk to are absolutely have more than enough on their plate, they have more than
Mm-hmm.
enough they're focusing in on right now, it's still hard to let go. And in particular, hard to let go when it comes to things like coaching, where most HR professionals joined this type of work because they love helping people. They love coaching. They love helping people with their performance. They didn't join because they wanted to spend 6 hours behind a spreadsheet. But that's often where they end up if they're not
Mm-hmm.
involving AI into the process. So I think it's a really, really key point. As Michelle's asked a really great question or made a comment in the chat below, specifically saying that the concern with AI has always been privacy and proprietary information. So the question being asked is who owns the data? Where is it being stored? Just given the level of sensitivity around that. And I think it's a really great point. I think this is why it's so critical that we have co-creation and transparency in the process so that the employees know where information is being housed and how it's being used and how it ultimately benefits them. So we talk about AI in terms of privacy from a negative lens, but in a positive lens where it's co-created, personalization leveraged by AI is a game changer when it comes to things like learning and when it comes to things like succession planning and performance. But that's going to require information to fuel the context. Otherwise, we're going to get generic responses. So it is a double edged sword, but it's one that has to be co created between the organization and the employees. It needs the employees' consent with respect to the use of information. And obviously, you need to take great care with who sees the information, where it's shared, and who has access to that type of data. But if we're talking about a manager and their employee having deeper insights using artificial intelligence, sign
Mm-hmm.
me up. What are your thoughts?
I completely agree. I completely agree, but the concern is still really there, right? So
Valid.
as HR, we are still seeking to understand it first, and then we're in this knowledge or expertise that we really are not the best at, which is technology, right? We are always the last one to adopt technology, and we're the last ones to fully understand how technology works. And I think we're still in that moment, right? So maybe we don't keep all of that responsibility to ourselves, and we need to know who to connect with in our organization to get that understanding. So when Michelle is asking, like, who can ask me about privacy and proprietary information and who owns the data? I think that's very dependent on every organization, but usually it's your IT team that is very knowledgeable or what your data sets are, and how and how the whole data set flow works. And they will be much better to tell you if it's secure or not, or if it's following the security guidelines of your organization. And so creating those connections internally is really important to help you trust the product, and not only keep that responsibility to yourself, but also bringing the other experts in your organizations to help you get those insights.
So we've talked about things in the abstract, in the theoretical, but I think now is a great time to pivot into the practical. And I believe that one of your colleagues, Eva, is going to join us to walk through how she leverages generative AI in the performance management process. A bit of a art of the possible. Eva, would love to have you on the stage and join us here today.
Hello.
Welcome.
Very nice.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Hello. Do you hear me?
Loud and
Yes.
clear. Can you hear us?
Great. Yes, I can. Nice
As I was
to.
mentioning, Eva, it's great to see you. And you were mentioning offline that recently you used AI during a performance management review cycle, and you used it and saved a lot of time. Would you mind just like talking us through a bit about the context, a bit about you, your role at Workleap, and then specifically how you were thinking about using performance management, and then just talk us through how you went about doing it?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, my position as head of growth is a position in which I need to know AI very well. Maybe Irina was mentioning that HR folks adopt AI maybe more on the tail end, but in my field in marketing, it's pretty much like you're out of a job if you don't use that, proactively in how you work and integrate it really well. So I think in my area of work as a growth and marketing practitioner, you use AI in a lot of use cases for marketing, but as a leader and a manager of people, I think it's equally important to accelerate how I think and how I'm impactful on the team. And AI is an incredible tool to do so. And so, when came the performance review process, for me, it was like a no-brainer. I didn't even think twice about not using it, but I was reflective on how best to use it in a way that would be saving me time, but yet without taking away from what I think is really important in a review process, is me as the manager reflecting on the people's performance and what went well and what didn't, and so on. And so hopefully in the example that I'll share a bit later, you can see that the thinking doesn't go away as a manager, but the delivery, and especially for me as a francophone person first, I'm somebody that speaks better than I write, and I think out loud. So, having this ability to think my thoughts, but then being captured in a way that's actionable and easy to deliver is game changing. And so that's kind of what I played around with the process, and hopefully I can share some of that today.
Oh, I think we just lost Matt.
Yeah, I was worried it was me.
No,
No, we're all.
wonderful
He's
Wi-Fi
back.
connection. But that being said, would love to have you walk us through that process.
Yes. Okay, so I'll try to share this screen. Let me know. Well, I can see my screen, so I guess you folks see it as well. Great. Okay, so I'll use GPT-03 for today, but as you know, or maybe not know, but models evolve on a weekly basis. So, today is 03, maybe when I did the review, it was, 01. So the responses will change. So hopefully we'll have a live example with good response, but, that's just the name of the game. And I thought that I can also share quickly why 03 versus say other models right now. You can see the models today. And the model that most people use is 04. And the big difference, which I've included in the resources, by the way, at the bottom of the page that I share with you, is that 04 is kind of your day-to-day partner. I want to say that to, my boss, I'm not really sure, just have me flesh this out. 04. Great thought partner, quick, focused on output. 03 is what we call a reasoning model. So O3 will pause itself in its track, and it will reflect on what you said. You'll even see the model think, okay, she wants me to do this, and maybe that's the way I'm going to go. Oh no, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to go this way. So when you want, higher output, more complex, more strategic output, O3 is kind of your best buddy. So in this case, quite frankly, I think both could work. But O3 again is a better thought partner, more rational model. So that's what I'm going to use for today's sake. So what I did first is reflect on the prompt. Again, when I did this exercise, I was less fleshed out. And it's okay, because AI learns about you, and the more you'll use this chat, or the chat that I'll show you, to do the different reviews, the better it will get. So don't, over stress about the prompt being like perfect. It's okay. Put something out there and then refine as you go. But for today's exercise, I kind of flesh something out for you. So I gave you two versions, kind of a light version and a bit more structured one. I'll use a structured one for today. Again, it's in the resources, you can use it. But yeah, so I'll go through the prompt. Important when you use AI to give it context. The more context, the better it is. So I start by saying, you're an expert in HR, you're an executive coach, and a prompt strategist. What I want you to do is help me write high quality performance review for a team member, based on their self-assessment, the peer assessment, and then their own reflection. Again, I'm using Workleap's performance management framework, but every company has their own. So this is interchangeable, right? Just switch whatever framework works for you. I want the review to be written to my employee, like I'm speaking to them. And then use a tone that is thoughtful, strategic, and direct, but be people first, coach oriented, and grounded in outcomes. So again, this is my approach. I think some of that is best practice, but like, this is the way I like to deliver things. Feel free to tweak, so that it reflects who you are. I give it short instruction. You'll start the conversation by asking me who's the review for. And then, let's insert the first section. In our case, is accomplishments. But again, whichever performance review framework you're using, you can switch that easily. And then once you help me craft the answer for the first section, pause, and then don't move to the next one until I say so. So again, that gives you an opportunity, like review, and you're like, yep, that's what I wanted to say, or like, I'm not sure, and you can tweak, and you don't just get like a huge blurb of everything that AI thinks about the performance of your employee. In here, I also added coaching frameworks. So this is like optional, but I'm really obsessed by becoming a better leader. Like, I think about this on a daily basis. I read a lot about it. And so over time, I read books, thought leaders, experts that I really loved. And so in this case, I'm giving that to AI, again, extra context to say, think of these great leaders, thought leaders, and their best, framework for coaching, and incorporate that when you deliver. So initially, we talked about AI. I saw that question, I think, Alessandra, it was like, how to keep that being personal. Well, this is super personal. This is like me 10 years of reflecting on how I can be a great leader. I'm just telling AI to help me, but I'm still really, thoughtful in my approach, and just want the best outcome for the people in my team. Here I added the company values, right? So this is our values, but again, switch them to yours. I also added my expectation of a high performer. So this is on top of the company values. Again, these are mine. Use yours or don't, but I want to make sure, again, I give everything. It's like, to me, this is a high performer, and here's our company values, and here's the coaching framework that I love. I structured, the reviews in 4 sections. Again, this is our Workleap performance tool, but use whatever works for you. Accomplishment, areas for improvement, the behaviors, and then again, if there's a progression or a role change, then we have that as well. And the last piece is just some kind of guardrail around output. You can use, as I mentioned before, the easy, short, clean prompt, right? Just giving you like the extra, I guess, depth if you want to go there. AI, my conversation with it will look different than yours. It changes all the time. It reflects differently. So I want to give it output so that I don't get something completely wild. So just basically, open with a context, add bullet points, tell them what great looks like. So that, based on everything I said, clear, actionable, here's what great looks like to you. And then, match the tone. So I gave it, a sentence that I would like to say so that, again, it uses my approach and not just typical AI robot stuff. That's the prompt. Again, don't be intimidated by this. I engineered it for you for today, but you can just wing it, just get something out there in the chat, and then you'll get better and better at it over time. So what I'll do is I'll go in GPT now. We do have a tool called Workleap AI in which you can also do that. But for today's sake, I'll do that here, again, using O3. So I'll paste that here, blah, 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 blah. Great. We'll see what it says. And this is a live demonstration. Maybe I'll go completely wrong, but that is fine. So you can see O3 is reasoning. Okay, they want me to do this, blah, 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 blah. You can always click here and see actually what they thought, which is super interesting because you could just say right now, no, that's not what I wanted. In this case, he got me. I think it's a he, but I don't know why. AI got me. So who's the review for? And then let's start with the accomplishment. Remember that I told him start with the first section. So he actually executed what I said, which is great. So in this case, I'll also show you how I use Super Whisper, which we can put the tool in the resources, to talk to AI. I think this is a huge game changer. Not only for me, that speaks better than I write, for anyone, because you always speak better than you write in a way, because it's faster. You can give it unstructured thoughts, and then you can just let it figure it out. So in this case, Super Whisper looks like that. It's not going to show you the full tool because I'm using two screens, but you'll get the gist. So what I'll do is I'll speak to it. Hopefully, maybe I can put there you go. So you'll see at least that it's capturing my voice. I'll delete all that. Actually, I'll do that right now. There you go. It said I'll delete all that. So I'll start it again. Okay, so this review is for Phil. Phil is a paid marketing specialist in my team. If you're not sure about what that is, let me know. I can give you more context about the role. And I'll paste right now his peer reviews as well as his own self-reviews, and then I'll voice you what I think about his performance in a minute. I stop. While it translates, you saw it translated it and it put it right into GPT. You do have an audio tool in GPT. After many experimentation, I confirmed that this tool sometimes is unreliable, and I did spend very long amount of time talking to it, and all of a sudden what I said disappeared. That's really frustrating. Super Whisper, super accurate, captures really well, save your conversation, so if something happens, you can bring it up. Just a little FYI. Okay, so I gave it this, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go take this fake review-ish that I created just for the sake of this exercise, so you can see what Phil said about himself, what his peers said, and I'm going to go here and paste that there. And then I'm going to start again, and I'm going to voice my thoughts on his performance. Again, I thought about that before. In this example, not too much, but in the real life, I did think about that. And in the real life, I genuinely spoke to AI for probably 5-10 minutes because I just went deep into my thoughts. Right? Reflection. It's like, oh yeah, this happened and that happened. You know what? Actually, I think that blah, blah, blah. For today, for the sake of time, I'll, keep it short and simple, but I don't want to understate how much I actually reflected on Phil's performance. I just took time to voice it over as opposed to take a pen and paper and then, do that for whatever, an hour. So I'll do a shorter version here. Okay. So I think that I would generally agree with the peer reviews for Phil. I think he's definitely owning the result. He acts as an owner, which is really a reflection of our values here at Workleap. He definitely led some high impact experimentation. I can think of an experimentation on paid on Facebook, which led to a 2x in lead generation. And he went from ideation to, owning the actual experiment, and then he owned the results. So I really liked the follow through there. Ultimately, I also think that he's great at thinking in system. Phil understand the problems that we're trying to solve. He's not just like a doer of things, and that's really something that I value in him. And ultimately, I think I really enjoyed working with Phil. Using him as a thought partner. It's great, so I can validate my thoughts. He's challenging me. I learn. I'm being better. So he's ultimately helping me be a better leader, which I really, really deeply value. Okay, we'll let Super Whisper. Here we go. So I'm just going to add for content. Here is my review of Phil's accomplishment. And I will wait. We'll see what comes out. That's the big suspense. Again, it's thinking. It's good news. The other thing while it's thinking that you can do is, if you see an example of a great review being delivered anywhere, somebody else, you can use that and say, hey, I want you to help me deliver a review just like that. So just another way to think about it. Cool. So accomplishments, Phil, you had a standout quarter. You worked in just hit target, reshaped how we think about paid and growth across the team. Let's unpack the biggest wins so we see the full picture. And now it's going through the structure that I gave it, clear bullet points, summary, impact item. It gives what great looks like, has an extra kind of strength on his accomplishment. And then it's just basically going to do the same thing. I'm going to do a quick check on time, because I could keep going through areas for improvement, behaviors, and even like using AI to help with mapping expectations of what great looks like in the next, iteration. But I'm going to wait to see first where we're at.
Yeah, there were a lot of questions in the chat around how can we make this concrete, and how does this happen, and what tool to use. So this was really a good visualization of what that is with a more generic tool, so ChatGPT. Just to tell everybody, this is the paid license. Maybe some of you are using more of the free version. So always look at for security reasons when you're using the free version. But on our side, since it's a paid version, we can put our confidential company information into ChatGPT and really get all of those insights that Eva just shared. We also have just a little bit of a poll. We don't want you to feel ashamed if you're not doing what Eva's doing. Definitely not. We want to bring you the best today, just so that you know what you can do. But we have 2 polls that we'll be launching. So there's one about how often are you using AI in your HR work, and there is another one, which is, do you want to know what Workleap performance management does? So we do have a Workleap performance management that has AI capabilities. And we will be sharing some of that right now or very soon with Jolene coming in to show you that. But we'll show you not only AI, but also what all of Workleap performance management can do. Jolene, do you want to?
Folks are joining and finishing the poll. Let's have Jaylene join us on the stage.
Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Nice to see everybody virtually. Thanks for having me.
As well. While folks are filling out their polls, Jaylene, a bit about the introduction of yourself, your role at Workleap, and let's get into the demo.
Yeah, I'd love to show everybody around a little bit more about what Workleap does. I saw that there were some questions in there about, do we have a tool that facilitates this kind of stuff. And I'm really pleased to be here to show you a bit of what Workleap performance can do. So I'm Jaylene. I'm a manager of the customer success team here at Workleap. I've been with the company for 6 years, so I've really had the pleasure of seeing the evolution of our tools and how far we've come in just in regards to performance management, overall engagement, and the multiple tools that we have under the Workleap umbrella. And it was really such a pleasure as well to see what Eva is using in her AI capabilities and how that's feeding into her performance reviews. As a manager, a team manager of just 6 people, it's not too many, but very common team manager feelings about performance reviews. We finished our first cycle of performance reviews just wrapping up last week, actually. And with our performance management tool, we do have some AI capabilities that, as a manager, I can speak to really did lighten the load for me, but still allowed me to keep that really nice personalized touch. I've always been someone that really aims to communicate clearly. I think much like Eva does, is communication is so important. And when you're managing and leading people, and it's, you know, in HR, you want to make sure that your communication is coming across concise, the way that you're intending it to. And written communication can sometimes get muddy, as we all know. I think we've all received a text or an email or a written review that we weren't really sure about the tonality with. So I think that our tools really help to alleviate that lift, and it makes it, I mean, my experience with the tool was really nice. I'll share my screen here just to get you going and show you exactly what some of the things I'm talking about are. So in Workleap performance, we've got under the Workleap umbrella, like I mentioned, quite a few tools here. We've got a nice breadth of tools for the HR folks on the call if you're ever interested. But today, let's focus really on performance. When you come into our tooling, you get this really nice homepage. If you do have any active cycles here, you'll always be able to see anything that's come up. You can see any current review cycles, and it gives you a really nice, easy overview going into it. Going into our actual cycles here, this is where we can see a little bit more of the nitty gritty and anything that we have live. So thankfully in our tool right now, we do have some examples. Now, please bear with me, this is example data. So it's not the full breadth of what we would normally see with our normal day-to-day performance management, but we can see some of the options that we have. So for HR leaders, you do have a lot of capability for customization with your performance cycles, creating from scratch. You can see here as well, we've got some examples for annual performance reviews, quarterly, mid-year. We've even got some specifically templated out for core value focused. And what you'll see here is that we really allow that customization for self-reviews, peer reviews, as well as manager reviews. So one of the most exciting things I think that we've launched is the peer-to-peer review cycle within our performance management that's also lifted with AI. And so when managers come into it, you really have this holistic view of how people have performed on your team. Going into create a cycle, you really do have that capability to customize exactly what data you're looking to extract from your members. And it can be as light or as serious as you want. Maybe you need a full compensation review where you're really looking for the nitty gritty of multifaceted reviews where you're asking for peers, the folks to review themselves, as well as the manager to review. And you can also just do those lighter touch points. So even if we were to just, let's say, select all 3 here, you can go in and really customize everything here. So we'll see that we've got all three viewpoints. You can customize it with the title. And from here, this is where you can add your target audience. So you're able to exclude, you can include teams, you can include specific people, or you can just do it for the entire organization. So we can see here, as soon as I select that will have 68 reviewees included here. So what I love about this as well is you can make it time-based. So you've got deadlines built into the tool that will automatically let your folks know at what point they need to complete. And I do love that this comes in. It helps to keep me on track as well. And I see some questions about HRIS. Yes, we integrate directly with over 45 HRIS tools. So we do have quite a lot of capability. In here as well, when we're looking at the number of peer reviews, we can add a recommendation, making sure that we're holding accountability here. We don't want overload too many people. We know that people are really, thoughtful when they're giving peer reviews and all of that. So we want to make sure that we're adding just enough here to make it clear, and so that the managers get a really good level of insight from their members and the peers. So the form is completely customizable. Like I said, you can do a rating scale. In each question as well, you have the option to ask in all or some of the manager reviews, this peer reviews. You can really customize it. You can add in descriptions. You can rephrase it for a self-review. So really, as you can see, there's a lot that you can bring in here. In the open text, this is where you can just add an open text question, allowing people to really give their full thought, and then multiple choice as well. So in here, we have a lot. You can add as many sections as you like. But if I go into here and just to see one of the example performance reviews already complete, let's go into the mid-year performance review cycle here that has some examples. So we could go in, of course, we can customize what we like. We can add in the members that we want, and we can specify here whether we're looking for self-review, manager review, and peer. So in this one, I think this is a really great overall review of what we can offer. Let's hop into Mia's review here to see. Coming in here, the viewpoint that I'm using here is from an HR leader. So I'm coming in to look at the completed review. From here, right off the top, we can see that we've got a nice AI generated summary on the full review that's taking into account the self-review, the manager review, and the peer review for Mia here. So you can see everything has been submitted, and we're able to then correct the tool as well by giving a thumbs up, thumbs down. We can copy this. So some of the work is already done here for you. When we go through as well, we are able to quickly see how they've rated themselves, and the peers have rated their peers as well. Goal setting and achievement. Here's where we see really all of the detail in there. So the AI tool that's built into our performance management is taking all of this information that the members have taken all the time to put in. If this can be leveraged with our Workleap AI tool, which connects into a number of your resources as well, this can come into place with, online tools that you might use with shared resources. You could ask our Workleap AI, tell me how many Confluence pages that Mia has contributed to, and it's going to give you a well-rounded overview of what they've done. So you do have full access and the capability to select which types of internal resources you want to pull from, but it does help to lift that load. I will say as well, the last thing as a manager, when I was going through to complete my manager reviews, once you have the peer reviews and the self-reviews completed, there's an AI button that allows you to generate very quickly and easily a nice overview review, an AI overview to input as the manager. Fully customizable as well. As I mentioned, I really value coming across authentic and making sure that my members are still feeling like I'm giving them the feedback and that it's not coming from a bot, but giving, utilizing what Ava showed you as well as what's built into the performance tooling here can really help alleviate that lift that is performance reviews. We know that it takes a lot of time, and what we're always trying to get out of these is accurate, great feedback, wonderful building blocks to help our members just increase their growth opportunities. So using that, I think it really does help. I see that there's some questions coming through as well. We do have a number of integrations. Uploading past reviews, we don't have the ability to upload past information yet. We really want it to be uploaded or started from scratch within our tooling so that it's really built out to look the way that that you wish it to look like. But what I do love is that you can customize these to keep the cycles open as long as you need. Even for example, I've got this wonderful template from one of my team members, I think Jen, who built in this cycle that really builds on the core values that you can review people on. So not always, like I said, that heavy lift of that full annual review or that quarterly cycle that's more heavy. You can really go in and have the peers evaluate themselves and your members evaluate themselves on how your core values are coming through. So this can really be, just an addition in keeping a nice pulse check into where your members are at and how everybody is feeling across the organization. So I think we do have we have another poll question coming up here. I hope that this was a nice little foray into what our performance management tooling can bring to you. I will say, like I said, I think I said customization probably a lot on here, but it is true that it's very customizable to you with the built-in Workleap AI and the AI tooling in there. It's really just in here to alleviate a lot of that lift that is performance reviews.
Agreed. Thank you so much, Jillian. On the notion of past performance reviews, we also have the chat AI that you can use. So you can always like extract the data yourself individually or talk through it like Eva did to just like share some insights and complete your reviews as they are. The last question poll, as Jillian said, is the one that I mentioned before. So now that you know a little bit of what Workleap performance is, would you like to see more of it? It's our last question. And while you answer that, I would love to look back at the poll results of the two other questions because the answers are really interesting. So I will share this with the group here. So first question was, how often are you currently using AI in your HR work? So we have over 50% that are saying almost daily, which is great news. And then we're very tied between a few times a week. I've experimented, but not regularly. Not yet, but I'm curious. How do you react to that, Matt?
I'm actually pleasantly surprised, I'll be honest. This information has changed pretty materially in the last several months. It wasn't too long ago that most people that I talked to had very limited use of AI, or were thinking about, it was used to create poems and songs and fun activities. But in terms of application of work, it was kind of lagging. We've definitely seen a sea change in organizations in terms of using this. And I think that's a great piece. Anytime you can give HR professionals access to technology, it is a great result. So this is really exciting results.
Agreed. And the last one, have you used AI at any point in your performance review process? We have 43% that are saying not yet, but planning to. And then we have about a 40% that is like, it is part of the flow or it's just a test. So I'm also really surprised by those results. Eva, do you have any insights or perception on that?
Yes and no. As in, to be honest, I was expecting maybe more of the not necessarily using it yet fully. So I'm, positively surprised that I think there's been already some 20% that actually integrated in the workflow, which is awesome. Love to know how. And at the same time, I understand that there's always this kind of fear of getting started, or just like the unknown. And so I, as we talked about earlier, I think always encouraged to just starting somewhere, and then kind of build from there, so that it's helpful and it's exciting. Learning something new is fun, I think.
Agreed. I'm really happy to hear that people are using it. Yes, Jolene, you were saying something?
Yeah, I agree. And as someone, I was relatively, I don't want to say afraid, but I was apprehensive just because of you're never sure how it's going to come out. But really, I was so relieved to see that you can train it, you can really make it into your own voice and tone, and it really just leverages everything that you want. It saves a lot of time. I was pleasantly surprised to see that, and just adding on to the all like robust resources we have as well within Workleap platform, but in the day-to-day of everyday work really is helpful.
We have two questions in the chat and we have 2 minutes. I think we can answer these. Does performance management currently support continuous feedback? Is the question.
So we do have, we're actually building out on the continuous feedback loop with our performance management tooling. The 360-degree feedback right now is included in the review cycles, but it's something that our team is very aware of, and it's a highly requested feature in the performance management tooling. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see it coming sooner than later.
Yes, it should be coming in soon. So that's great news. Last question that we have, but please sending other that you have. Is the AI in-house platform that Workleap customized, or is it a ChatGPT product?
My understanding is that is an in-house, it was an in-house built. We've got a robust team focused specifically on our AI development. Whether they used on any of the other frameworks, I can't speak fully to that. Eva, maybe you have a bit more information on that, but I know it was built in-house on our own model.
Yeah, we're building it in-house. There's a full team called Workleap AI that's leveraging that. But again, I think the model itself is not that critical. What's going to be critical is the data that the model will be built on, and that will be yours ultimately. So I think that that it will look different, wherever you are and whatever kind of type of data you want to feed it. And I think it can even be really useful right now without any like breadth of data, but it's a 10xer, I think, once it understands your system. Also, I would say, just because I don't see any other question on this last question, if you want to get the benefit of AI to this extent, I think you'll need to pay for the models. GPT's about what, $30 a month, could be 200 if you go to the more advanced version, and then you have enterprise packages. But it's not that cheap, right, to get your entire company. I don't know what size company you have, but let's say you have 100 people even. It goes up fast. I think many companies are trying to integrate that within their product, and I think at Workleap, the add-on will be probably around like $2 to $5. So it's like you get the same capabilities and better because it's linked on to your data compared to OpenAI or even whatever Claude that you're using, Perplexity or so on. So this is the future, but I think it's worth the little extra investment if it's really going to be changing the game and how you're delivering the experience for your employee ultimately. But again, I'm biased and I'm bullish into this, but still.
No, it's a great question. I actually would love to let us dream a little bit, and I think I'll turn this question to Matt, and maybe I can even answer afterwards. But like, if we were to be looking in a couple of years, where do we think AI is even going to evolve even more in the context of performance management?
Yeah, no, I'm super excited about the conversation because I think it's right in a number of fronts. I think first off, Eva's comment around the models, it's not particularly important which model you're using as long as you're using it thoughtfully. So whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini or your own in-house solution, using it with some thought and some intention is going to make all the difference when it comes to the outputs. I think that's a really great point. And to that point, I think when we look at the evolution of performance management with AI, we're going to see more personalization. And we're going to see performance management really expand to include more data points to really give a holistic view of what performance actually means. Let's be honest. In today, most organizations, performance management is, what does your manager think about you most recently? That's the reality in most organizations today. In more sophisticated organizations, they have more formal processes. But even then, as we discussed, Irina, like there's a recency bias that comes into play in a lot of organizations. They scramble at the same time every single year to get their evals done, to get their bonus information submitted. It becomes this really activity-based process as opposed to employee-centric. And where I think this changes is because now we can bring more types of information in. We can bring customer sentiment in. We can bring 360 feedback in. We can bring business KPIs in. We can bring employee self-assessments and manager assessments and bring them all together to give a really holistic view of performance and marry that to business performance and results. I think that for me is it's not so much that it's different than what it is today with AI. It's just that it's more of that and more enriched and more refined information.
Yes, I completely agree. I would have said something the same, but I would have used different words. I was like, we will now be able to be doing continuous performance management for real, right? So we were depending on having managers doing one-on-one conversations on a continuous basis to say that we're right now doing continuous performance management. But if we have AI that's connected to your calls and is connected to your Outlook and it's connected to the work that you're doing, we will be able to have a holistic view of performance in general in a continuous manner. And if we're not scared of that, that'll just give us a picture on a continuous manner, and it will not add additional tasks or to do to a manager or to an employee to assess and summarize, when AI is going to be great at being less biased and less hallucination. So that'll be very, very useful. So I really hope that all of this becomes just human, and then a lot of it, all of the administrative things become back end and done by AI. That is my dream on this topic. You're on mute, Matt.
I was just saying, we've had a great conversation so far. We've had some great poll questions. Just want to encourage folks, if you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead and answer those questions. Most recently, are you wanting to see more of this conversation? I know it's a bit of a teaser today, so if you're interested in hearing more, click on that poll question, get your information to the Workleap team. They can walk you through, one, what they're working with, but also help understand what you're working with today and bridge that gap between the two. That's a really critical piece. So, Irina, thank you so much. Jaylene, Eva, thank you guys so much today for a really, really great conversation. We've also recorded this whole chat, folks. So if you need to see this, come back to play it later, feel free to do so. If you have colleagues that weren't able to join us today because of other meetings, feel free to share that with them. And looking forward to the next conversation.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you so much.